Yes.
So yeah, Josh will be late. He contacted me earlier and Leah is not here tonight. Do we have any additions to the agenda?
We don't have an addition, but we may take A under other items, and that may end up being an action item.
Okay.
So it doesn't, because there may be a motion at the end of it,
Okay.
depending on how it feels. So it doesn't really change the order by which we're doing anything.
Okay. So in that case, hearing nothing else, we need to approve the minutes of January 9th. January 9th. We've got the March 13th.
It should have March 13th.
Yeah. Okay. So, sorry. This one was here. Let's see. You even made a motion. Any discussion about the minutes? I mean, okay. All in favor of approving the minutes? Opposed? Any four abstentions? Audience with the public? Do you guys have anything you want to?
No, we're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so why don't you go with what you're doing here?
Okay, so Linda is going to come on the stage and talk about new courses for the high school for the students.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. If you go to the third page of the document, there's the courses of study document there, and you can go all the way down to the bottom. It talks about the high school diploma standards, and if you remember, last year we came before our learning committee to request that we go from. We had been at 24 credits at Development Valley High School for quite a while, and we had dropped down to 22 probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I explained at that meeting, one of the things that we noticed was happening was that with the way our schedule has to be written every other day for block schedule, 22 credits was concerning me because the law says that students require 4 years of a high school education. And we were starting to have more and more students that with the 22 credits were finishing earlier, so that by the time they got to their senior year, they only needed to be there for 1 of the 2 days. And it seemed like if you approach it mathematically, if you have 2 days with 4 blocks each day, it means that you've got 32 potential credits and 22 needed to graduate. Was just seemed like a little too few. But when it was 24 and we had said that you had to have 4 years of math and we had really dictated the content areas, that is what created problems for students who say went to MCST or pursuing a different pathway. So what we did last spring, if you remember, is we added 2 more credits, but they're elective credits so that students can take them from wherever. And not just be handcuffed by them, so to speak, to get through their 4 years of education. So what that meant for us is that we were then challenged to work on adding electives to our offerings that kids really wanted to take. And that's something that we've been working pretty hard on. So I wanted to update you on the changes that have occurred in the updated. The document isn't quite yet ready to be published. Kids are in the process of signing up right now. And I think we've made the final touches that they're working from. But I wasn't ready to just have you have the complete document tonight. But there are some things that are being removed because under social studies, we have had government and economics as semester-long classes. And the social studies department recommended that even though we still are keeping them as government and economics, that they attach them together as a year-long course so that they have the same students all year long. So what's happening to them now is they'll have a group of students for semester 1 for economics And then it's all mixed up, rolled over and mixed up with a different group, some same, some different for, I don't know what I said first, government to economics, but it made more sense to them to attach them together. But there's really no change. It's just a way of looking at the credit, whether it's half for two of them for one, or attaching them so it's one, and you have the same students all year. So that changes there. It's going to provide a little more continuity to them. We have had a difficult time filling macroeconomics. We can fill the AP microeconomics, which is half credit, usually the first semester of their senior year. And then we've had like 2 or 3 kids take macro, and then one of them will drop out, and then we'll have 2 kids, and it's not viable to offer macroeconomics because we can't get enough signups. And I can't have one dedicated teacher for 2 kids, or even I think 1 kid at some point, so 1 student. So we're taking that out for this coming year. And then we've added in some pieces. We've taken microeconomics, and instead of having it be a semester class, by taking out macroeconomics, it can become a full year. And since that's what seems to be what attracts the kids is the micro, stretching it out to the full year and making more of that seems beneficial. We're adding in an AP government, advanced placement government for 1 credit for kids in 10 through 12. And then I already talked about combining the government and the economics. Yeah, go ahead. Do you have any questions about that so far?
Level of competence, what is micro and macro?
That's a really good question, and I'm not prepared to answer that question. But if you
I was a
can,
social
I'd love
studies
to. Good.
So microeconomics is really, it's like the laws of supply and demand.
Okay.
Okay, it's very mathematical, and you're gonna learn a lot of formulas, and you're gonna learn how to apply them. Macroeconomics is really on a national or international scale.
Okay.
So you're gonna learn more about like policy in a macroeconomics course. Like what happens when the Fed sets interest rates at a certain level? What does that do to the overall
Okay.
economy?
So we seem to, for whatever reason, be able to get kids to do the micro, but not the macro. So we just decided to focus more and stretch out the micro and add more to that. And the whole goal is to keep kids interested in something, and they weren't signed up for the macro. So thank you very much, sir. I understand that.
Sometimes I'm useful.
Say more often than you might think. We are looking at, it looks like there's a road quotation mark in there. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. We've used this text before. It's your roadmap to crushing goals and building confidence. And the person who's designed this course, Jonathan Henkin, is pretty popular with a certain group of our students who would really benefit from the Success Toolkit. So pairing that course with him, we're thinking we'll draw some kids who can really benefit from that. And the next 2 are courses that I've wanted to add for quite some time, and that is the history of sports. I think we definitely can get kids into history by going through it with the history of sports. And the second course right underneath that is through our physical education teachers, coaching, athletic administration, and game day management to try to get students into the thinking of when they'll graduate, or even they can volunteer to help with our youth programs who need people desperately. And we can also use their skills to help Matt Lash, particularly with the skills required to line fields and prepare fields and help with that. So we really are excited about those 2 courses. Do you have any questions about those 2?
I think it's great that they're talking about real life skills.
Yes, yeah. Get kids moving, get them outside, get them helping other students to build capacity so that they won't necessarily be shy of helping out with the youth program, which seeing my granddaughters in youth programs, that is just so important. It's so necessary to us, but we definitely need people, particularly in the refereeing end of things. So, or the umpire end of things. So yeah, we're excited about that. And then we're taking out college comp 1 and 2, and the problem with that is we're sorry to not be continuing with our Thomas College dual enrollment, but they're taking away college comp 2. And what that does for us is they're semester-long courses. And when you have kids signing up for English and they have a semester-long course, then you have to think about what you're going to put after that semester if you need 4 years of English. And so because they're taking away that college comp 2, and we also have advanced placement courses in English, it didn't make any sense to continue to offer college comp 1 because there's no place for them to go. So that goes away. We have tech prep, which is, well, the language is a little funny there. We've been thinking about how we could rename some of these courses because it used to be that technical colleges like Southern Maine Technical College, all of those colleges changed and became community colleges. So we've gone to the community college model. And so years and years ago, when we made a level of classes that was not for people who were pursuing a 4-year college, but a 2-year college, we called them tech prep. We're exploring how to rename those because it's not the technical college language. It's no longer what Maine's using, and we need to join the century. But right now, for lack of, we explored a bunch of different ones and nothing came to us in the amount of time that we had before we had to publish the document. So we went with tech prep. And so we had added those in because they had been there for a while. And then we took them away and have everybody in heterosexual group, hetero grouping. So we decided to add that because we felt there were kids who needed a little bit of a different level of acceptation. So we put those two in. And then the great coup here is I'm really excited about the next course, Media Literacy and Fine Arts. This is a hands-on interactive class that is going to be offered back to back. And we're working with Lincoln County Television, and Patricia Swain is going to be doing, and we decided to make this an honors level class. And we just made that distinction a couple of days ago because we had some kids who had taken some AP classes and they really wanted to do this class, but they were concerned about the degree of difficulty and the level, and they really wanted it to be AP honors level. And so I decided if I was going to grasp the students that I wanted, I needed to make the level, the honors level. And so they are going to be writing copy, exploring the creative processes behind news media, and they will produce with LCTV's materials once a month a news broadcast from Adomic Valley High School, produced by the Adomic Valley High School students. And Larry is really excited, and I'm really excited. He will bring all of his supplies to us and work with the kids. He's already doing this in some elementary schools, I think in Bristol, with a 5th grade that they're working with. And he called me a couple months ago and said, hey, I'm doing this with some elementary kids, and do you want in? And I always want in. So I don't say no if I can figure out a way to do it. And I'm like, definitely I want in. And he had reached out to me yesterday for a letter of support because he's writing a grant through the Veterans Foundation to see if they will help us out with this. We're generating kid interest, and out of it could come LCTV apprenticeships. We already have one student who's apprenticing. Well, no, we have one student who's working for them right now, Sam Schuster, and then Quinn Vitale is working with them this summer in LCTV. So this is huge, and I'm really excited about this course, and well, the 2 courses. So Brooke Holland will be doing the fine arts credit, which would be completely film and production. But also the piece of that is Larry's willingness to work hard to bring all the equipment, teach the kids to set up the same professional equipment that they use to broadcast ball games, or they've come to our school a number of times. They've interviewed me before for Larry's program, and so they bring everything with them. So the setup, that's why it's a double period. It's constrained in the schedule that it's a back-to-back. so that on filming days, they could have, the double period to film. So really excited about that one. And then as our multi-language learner population increases and they're working with the MLL teacher, it seemed only fair that when they are working on gaining language skills, that they can get credit for the work that they're doing. And so we added that in with the MLL teacher's recommendation. And then the next course also, Tom may be able to add some more information on, but Amber Russo, we floated this idea, we started talking about it in the fall of the AP capstone, which includes 2 courses. One will come in this year, and the second one will be added next year, of AP seminar and AP research. And AP seminar, as it says there, is an interdisciplinary course that encourages students in their demonstration of critical thinking, collaboration, academic research skills. It goes along with the AP Lang course that we offer, but it's a little bit different
It's
than
different.
the research course, the research component that comes in of what students can pursue. We initially were thinking that Patricia Swain was going, no, we were thinking that Samantha Mills through social studies, and then we ran up against some difficulties with that. It wasn't working, and so I thought I was going to have to scratch it for the year and work on it for next year, and then I said, I'm gonna ask one more person, and I went down and talked with Amber Russo. She was really excited. Do you want to talk a little bit more about it?
Did anybody here attend the presentations of the students with the science fair? Okay, well, so I used to teach AP capstone. In fact, Brad, for a minute, I was the first teacher in Maine to teach it. And it's a 2-year sequence, and it is designed to be A, interdisciplinary, and then B, to teach kids how to do research that you'd need for a 4-year degree or even a master's degree. So it's very high level. The first year in AP seminar, what the kids learn how to do is what you would consider to be a classic literature review or a college study. So the theme of the course is set by the College Board because it could really be about anything. So the teacher and the school get to set the theme of the course, and that enables the school to fit it into your curriculum the way that you would like. So for example, there are teachers out there that theme AP seminar to like the global water crisis. And so all of the things that they study append to that theme. When I was teaching it, we designed it to fit in as a social studies credit and as a pathway to get the civics and government credit. So the theme of my course was what makes American democracy work. And so what makes it unique, what makes both of these courses unique among AP courses, is that when you think of an AP course, what comes into your mind that kids will do at the end? They'll take a test. So in these courses, however, the students write papers and do presentations. So it's much more authentic, and they really have to learn how to they have to learn how to cite sources. They have to learn different citation formats. They have to, there's all kinds of skills that they have to learn. They have to learn how to find what a peer-reviewed source is, and then how to analyze them and how to use the databases to make that happen. In AP seminar, they have to submit for their score 2 papers and 2 presentations / oral defenses of those papers, which are recorded. One of those presentations is actually a group presentation. So the group gets a theme to work with, and then each person in the group is assigned to look at the issue through a different lens. So, for example, let's just say that the issue was, I'll try to think, the College Board hands you a big theme. One of the years when I was teaching it, the theme was isolation. This was like right after the pandemic. And so the kids are in groups of 3 or 4, and then they had to look at the theme of isolation, but from different lenses. So one kid might look at it from an economic lens, one might look at it from a political lens, One might look at it from an ethical lens or an artistic lens. There's a list of lenses. And then each kid in the group does a paper about the central issue based on their own lens. But then they have to do a presentation together in which they consider all of their lenses and they propose some kind of solution that incorporates what they learned from each other. So it's about collaboration. It's about all kinds of things. And that's just the first year. The second year, AP research is when, this is where it gets really kind of very, very fast. But the kids have to choose a topic, anything they want. And I mean anything they want. It could be looking into the history of Tolkien's fantasy novels. It could be, these are things that kids that had it in my class did. It could be looking at the soil nutrients and organic farms versus traditional farms in the area. It could be looking at traffic patterns at Rockland. Could be anything. And then they have to go out and look at what all of the research is on this issue. And they have to read all of the research that currently exists. And then they have to find a gap in the research, some area where this topic has not been studied. And they have to design a study of their own that fills the gap. And then they have to conduct it. And then they have to write a big paper about it and present it. So it's really, really good learning. And unlike most other College Board things, I'm not a huge fan of College Board because they really like to make money at our expense. And they particularly like to treat our school counselors as if they're employees of the College
Yes.
Board
Mhm.
rather than employees of our school district. But what makes these so unique is that it's not just about tests, it's about actual
Right.
skills. Really, really valuable. So I'm so glad that Linda and Amber are willing to bring this on board.
So we're going to go ahead and try that, and really, she was quite a trooper to do it for next year when she's going for a week this summer. Because when I initially presented it to her, I said, you can wait a year, but you're gonna have to go to St. Joe's for a week. And study, and I've done advanced placement courses there, and you're there for a week and you're pretty immersed in the AP experience. And she was like, I want it for next year, I'll go. So she's on her way. And then I'll talk about contemporary history, and then I'm gonna back up a minute. But so then we're adding contemporary US history. We're trying to find electives that kids will take. And we're always trying to just work them a little bit to make them more interesting. And to, sometimes kids will say to us, like, for example, we already have, kids will say to us, well, I need to learn how to do my checkbook. And we say, yeah, Adulting 101, that's what's in that, it's described for you. Sign up for it, and so they will ask for courses, and then when the time comes and we look to see what kids have signed up for, and they haven't necessarily signed up for it, but we're trying to offer them what they're looking for. And so we're trying to work on that sign up phase of getting them into the courses that they have asked for. Part of that is the expectation of going from 22 to 24. So that kids aren't saying, well, I don't need to be there for your 1 month days of my senior year. And so we're working on that because we are supposed to be offering 4 years of an education and not like so. I want to say we're talking a lot also in all of our classes about, this really comes out of how artificial intelligence is impacting things, how the internet is impacting things, but we're talking a lot about standing and speaking about what you know is really where it's at, because that's where you're really going to know what somebody has learned. You might be able to find everything that you want to on the internet somehow, get involved in taking somebody else's work as your own, plagiarism and all of those things that we talk about. But I was in just a CP, college preparatory history class, and kids were just, the assignment had been, you can use slides if you want to, but research and learn to understand the topic in history that's anything that you want to do, and you need to stand up and talk about it for 10 minutes.
And of course, they worked on them for a very long time, but I went in for some of the presentations, and these are kids who normally, they aren't going to be people that are going to want to be up in front of the class. And we know that public speaking is something that really scares a lot of adults, let alone young people, and especially young people at the age. But I went in and listened to 3 or 4 of these presentations, and I was pretty proud of them just standing up and just talking about what they learned about the topic that they had chosen. One was prosthetic devices that had come out of the Civil War. It was a company, I can't remember it now off the top of my head, but there's a company that developed in that time for prosthetic devices out of the Civil War that is still, the iterations have come down all these years, and that company is still in existence. And then one of the things we also talked about in that was that kids nowadays can think of the Civil War as being forever ago. But when I was in the classroom, my mom was born in 1939, and her dad, we're not talking all that long ago. And I'm sure you try to teach kids this too. It's hard for them to grasp it. If you're over in Europe, the extension of time is much, much different. We're still a very young country, and we're not very far away from things like my mom had a radio. I didn't have color television at home until I remember when we got the color TV. That's just crazy for kids. Or when you talk about the phone with the line that you finally, I think when I was 18, we got the line that could go all the way down the hall and into my bedroom. That I could talk to my boyfriend and not have my dad who was sitting out at his desk in the hallway, hear every word.
Or the party lines.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. We had to
No. We're not very far away from those things, and trying to have kids understand how far we've come in such a short amount of time. And then also thinking another 200 years, where will we be compared to where we are now, and making these predictions. Anyway, those are things that we are talking about. We're talking about how we can constantly engage kids with the learning and add more authentic experiences with everything that we're doing. Sometimes it's hard, but I do think that teachers are challenging themselves to do that. Jen Hatch with the science fair and what she's doing with honors biology and honors sciences. If you remember, I've talked about it a bit, but if you remember about 4 or 5 years ago, Jen Hatch set a goal for herself working with, and I'm not going to be able to remember the organization off the top of my head, but the whole point of the organization is how to involve more kids in authentic and high-level research. We were not sending any students to the main science fair 5 or 6 years ago. And this year we came home with over 20 awards. And Jen Hatch has set this goal for herself, and other teachers have set similar goals, but she's really brought a high level of science research to our students. And if you ever are able to go to the science fair, I think I was able, there were 22, no, I can't remember how many projects were in the room that night.
It was 20 some.
20 some. I managed to listen to almost every single person. I know you were a judge, but if that isn't an example of a student standing up and saying, here was my question, here was my hypothesis, here's what I did, I was surprised when, and then, what other learning can come out of this? Where would you take it if you had the opportunity to continue? What questions did you develop out of that? These students could talk to you for 10 to 12 minutes straight, just off the cuff, about what they had done. 2 of those students, out of 12 main students, 2 of our Madonna Valley High School students have now been selected to participate in another round of competition that could yield them some monetary awards, I think between $1,000 and $1,500. So for us to get 2 of those slots out of 12 is really huge. So I know that you hear me talk a lot about my pride for the things that are happening at Madonna Valley High School. I have a pet peeve about people who say things like, oh, that's Madonic, or I have a pet peeve about people who say, yeah, I went to McDonald's and saw a Madonic student working there. And I want to say, well, who did you expect to be there? Have you ever been to McDonald's and drove up and nobody was there to wait on you? Because the fact is that you went to McDonald's. You go to Samoset. Who do you think is coming to events? Our kids, our people, our community members. So I know people will say, oh, only academic and that person graduate. Well, unfortunately, every year we have a few that don't make it. And we agonize over those students. But between the athletics and the academics and the drama and the music, there are really great things happening at our school, and there are very hardworking people who care about kids. And I think with that, I will end and ask any questions. Or answer any questions that I can.
And I just think that the way you talk about your school is really inspirational.
Thank you. Thank you. There are kids, and I guess I will say that, thank you to that, there are kids who struggle. I ran out into the parking lot to a sobbing student yesterday and said, is it okay if I hug you? Please do. And we stood in the parking lot until she calmed down enough and I was able to grab her hand and bring her back in, and we were able to talk. Like, our hearts are big and students need us from all across the spectrum. And it's hard work, but we're doing it. Despite all of the drama around us, we're doing it. Yes.
We keep hearing about test scores and down to, what about the 30% that really do the best? You have them.
We're sending.
I was in communication with a kid yesterday at noon time. He was waiting to see you. I said, you in trouble? No. But he was waiting to see you.
Yeah.
And he's a new kid to the district. I know him. Well, there ain't too many people I don't know. But some of these kids, they're struggling, and whether they're helpful.
Yes.
Yeah, not just the school system, but the communities that are helpful.
So if there are no further questions, this was the item that I thought might well be a motion to recommend to the board, the full board, that they take this up for approval.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Okay, then.
I move that we advance the proposed changes to the Duncan Valley High School curriculum to the full RC 40 board report.
Those people, Steve.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Any discussion?
I just think it's great. I think this is nice, and listening to your students and sort of adapting within their needs and keeping. It's a constantly evolving target, and it sounds like you're doing a nice job in meeting them where they're at.
Yeah, we try.
They don't always know what they need.
Oh, they always know they
Oh, they always think they do.
I hold on to this a lot, so if people come into my office, and I did this even today, with a student, and just said, this is your frontal lobe, this is your decision making. And this isn't fully developed until you're like 30. Hang on to that for a minute, because even though it's not fully developed until you're 30, you can practice making wise decisions. So, yeah.
I just have a question regarding the capstone thing, which I just, wait a minute, which one is the one that was gonna be the TV? Yes, because you said it was gonna be an honors level class. And I'm just thinking, what if there's a kid out there who's like non-honors level?
We're going to, that's our commitment.
So good for them.
That's our commitment, is to bring
Okay.
them up to it. We
Okay.
know that may happen,
Yeah,
but our goal is we want to take anybody that's interested in that
yeah,
and bring them up to it, because it is going to have so much authentic and relevant learning that
Yeah.
they're not going to be able to help but learn.
Right.
So we're not we are aware of that, Naomi, but we're not worried about it if we make it honors level.
Okay.
Because on the other side, I don't want people who really might want to take it, but are concerned about that designation, that they don't. And so I think if we err on the side of making it honors level, we'll be able to help that student. Patricia Swain is doing the English, and she is for the media literacy part, and she is excellent at reaching maybe learners who find English not their favorite subject.
Yeah.
So because I think we've done a really good job pairing the teacher with the course too. So I'm not worried,
Yeah,
because we wondered the same thing.
yeah. I mean, I can see this as being like,
Absolutely.
I don't want to like target indicator,
No.
whatever, but like an alternative educator.
Right.
I'll be like, oh, man, I would love to do that, but
No.
I get C's.
We're going to be aware of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
That's a good question. Thank you.
Talking about telephones, my first telephone number was a ring 48. And everything went through an operator. From where I get these bits of information, the town of Bryant Pond was the first town in the state that eliminated the operator.
Too much fun stuff going on.
Those operators,
I've been to Bryant Pond. That's pretty remote.
it is, it is.
Yeah.
I think that switchboard is gonna be part of our education center in the museum. We don't, I think there's gonna be some program around that.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Not for me.
No, mine comments wasn't.
So we have a motion on the floor. If there is no more discussion. You lose out on voting, Josh, sorry.
All right.
All in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions?
Yay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Excellent.
Thank you.
How's the gym, Josh?
Good.
Okay, next up on the agenda, Jamie has come to talk to us about the libraries.
All right, I have a slideshow, if you mind, I don't mind, I'm just gonna talk from it, and if you wanna see it later, I'll share it with you. So thank you for having me. I'm here to talk about, what I've been up to for the past, I think this is my week 5. And I just, kind of piggyback off what Linda was talking about, I just really enjoyed working in this district. I'm in the one school that I've gone to that has just been very welcoming and supportive and lovely. So I appreciate this opportunity. And I also want to start with the second thing I want to say is April is school library. And I want to say thank you for the staff that I have inherited from the district. You really are amazing people to work with. And I just can't sing their praises enough. They do lovely young work. Okay, so I'm going to go over some of the things I've been up to for the past month. I'm going to talk about short-term goals that I've come up with. And for sure, this is like a new target, but this is what I think we could do or we're working on now to the end of the year. And then maybe some future dreaming and scheming. Linda and I got to it last week, but it was pretty fun.
Yeah, we did, and it was a little scary.
I know.
We think so much alike.
I know.
Whoa, that's
I know. And for sure, if you put me in front of the train, we're moving. All right. So really, I've been visiting and intentionally spending as much time in the school as possible, and trying to spend like days at each school. And that lets me know a little bit more about every single school's process or what every librarian needs or wants or their grows and their flows, things that everything is a little bit different in every single school, not surprisingly. And also I get to learn about the kids and the community of the school as well. And then I've also been looking at the American Association for School Libraries has a nice framework for what libraries could be for our communities. I think it ties very well into like media literacy and the research classes there. Looking at libraries as places of community and learning and research and asking questions and finding their answers, right? And so I did a really brief survey of the librarians in the district to see their comfort level with collaborating with teachers and doing inquiry-based lesson planning, and that really is in the stages. In fact, I think it just got completed today, so I haven't really looked at that information too much, but we're going to use that for some of our future professional development with the librarians. And then last week, most of us got to attend the Reading Roundup, which was the library conference for the state, and every single person I've talked to that went there last week just come back with so many ideas and really, it was really a great opportunity. I'm glad that we got to go together. We had somebody who couldn't go because of weather and somebody who was doing something else at her school that day, but it was a great community builder for us, but also a great place to get some of my kids. So again, that trains. So one of the things that I've been consistently hearing from all of our librarians is the need to, let me back up. So between now and the end of the year, what I'm really hoping to focus on is community building and bringing us together. I think all the libraries have been pretty siloed and in their own little world, and to kind of bring us together as much as possible. Our half days, we are doing work together. I think in May, we're actually gonna go to the Friendship School. A lot of them have never been to the Friendship School, and kind of work in the Friendship Library to just help each other out, get to know each other a little bit more. And then I've been working on getting a state of the library, so I'll go into that in just a second. And then for me, I like to say I think in spreadsheets and Google Slides. So I like to track data. I like to know who's using the library, how many people are using the library, what kinds of books are going out, which kinds of books aren't, and just getting a general idea, because that helps us figure out what should we spend our money on and what is looking good for now, and that just gives us a lot of information. Or, maybe there's some kids who are using the library a lot, some kids who are not. Like, how can we work on increasing that library usage? And then the collection management plan, which I'll go into I've got some show and tells for you. So this is the overall idea of the overall consistent message that I've heard from all the librarians is that they really need to lead their libraries. And a lot of times when people hear leading a library, they think we're throwing out books, right? Which it could be part of that, but we're really being intentional and want to be very thoughtful about what's going out in the library. It also helps inform what's coming into our library. And we're using that IAJ policy, like aligned with curriculum, making sure that that's what we're focusing on. So I want to show you examples of things that have recently needed.
Teachers in the corner.
I know. So this is a wonderful book.
Yeah.
We are going to
I
replace
did not
it.
hear that.
Did you?
No.
Don't we all have one like that? Okay.
Yeah.
Have no fear. We're going to get a new one. But I mean, this one, if you're in high school, is not going to go very.
They're not going to pick that
They're
up.
not going to pick that one up. So we're going to do something about that. We've got the 1981 Forest Trees of Maine. You can get a digital resource. I'm not going to show you all of these, but I just want to give you a flavor. I've got several sets of the
Yes.
encyclopedia. This is from the.
No, I just.
Do you want them?
No.
I got three
My
sets.
mother's probably going in.
And then the last one I'll show you is this student just checked this out last week and brought it back. Was not very happy with us. This is the 1989. Guinness Sports World Record. I don't know. There's actually one in here from the 50s. So I'm not, don't shame, but it's just,
You need to give that to the history department.
I know. I'm like, we're going through, I'm like, some of this stuff's really hard to think about. I'm like, we're not a historical society, we're a library, but we'll find a good home for some of this stuff.
Didn't you just tell us about a history of sports course here?
Yeah.
Oh, do you want?
Oh, wait a minute.
I'll just show up one day with a book.
Yes.
So, anyway, I want to make sure you know, we're being very, very thoughtful. It actually is very helpful because, when we are able to clean it out like that, the kids actually they're able to find things that they want. And we are actually able to kind of spend our money more wisely. So I don't know if there's any questions about the weeding process. It's actually two sides of the coin, weeding and purchasing.
My kids currently think all of the weeded books from Union Elementary School need to come to our house because they come with it. This money in them.
I mean, a lot of those did come from Union School because they've just been, middle schools, the middle school's closed, and everything ended up at the Union Library, so it's been a real treasure if you're a historian. I also want to say one thing, like I told you, I like to think in spreadsheets, Google slides. One of the pieces of data we like to collect are the average copyright dates, and we're not, I know, right? So I just took a snapshot of technology, the 600s. Technology does not include computers. That's in the zeros. Don't ask me why. I didn't make up the Dewey Decimal System, but this is like medicine, construction, stuff like that. Okay. So mostly you want that to be pretty current. You want that to be like 5 to 10 years. Our average copyright date, the most current one is 2007. And our least current one is 1994, which is when I graduated high school. So we often say if the book can graduate high school and it's nonfiction, it might be time to go. Not always, we take it case by case sometimes. For instance, like Greek mythology, we don't think there's a lot of new information coming from that, that's okay. But if it's a building, construction, plane, those are things that you want to keep current. So that just helps us figure out, make decisions like, maybe our dinosaur books are looking like they need replacing, but they can get us by. But we really need new books on experiments in medicine and body parts. And, like, this is like health kind of books, like medicine, like that stuff. So that's kind of how I'm using those pieces of data. So any questions about that so far?
Is that the AI stuff that you were referring to in the report that Tom gave us?
AI.
Yeah.
You said,
You said you were using AI for doing some of the weeding?
oh, no, I had put in, because everybody's doing different things in different schools, I'm just trying to come up with a plan that we're mostly following so that because people just haven't been clear about what they could take out and what they couldn't take out. And so like the one that's the most current, I think that woman, that's Cindy, she's a librarian by day and a librarian by night, and just whatever she tells us to do, we do that. And then we have, and then we have some people who are newer and they're just nervous about taking books out. I mean, like we're librarians, if we, these are hard to part with, right? And so I used AI as just a way to I put in this, it's called the CREW method. It's what all libraries almost all libraries use to think about what comes in and out of their libraries. I just ran it through AI to see if we could come up with a good plan. And it just basically said, do the CREW. So in that case, AI was just kind of like, they didn't know what they're talking about. So that's kind of what we're doing with that. So, okay. Yeah. Okay. And then I think where we're going is, and Tom's been very good. It's like, Jamie, 35 years. I like to get, I'm on Lyndon's train, but Tom's like, okay, there's only one of you.
Right.
Just saying. And what can we do to, in the 3 to 5 year plan, where we'd like to go? So continuing to build out our community, our school community, not just within the libraries, but really starting to work with teachers and collaborating with them a little bit more. I'm going to talk about where I'd like to focus a little bit next year. And again, week 5 for me is pretty fluid. And then continue to work with all of our librarians on aligning our work to those AASL standards. Okay, So when I looked at all of the schools and where I might be needed, there's a lot of need. There's a lot of need, and there's me. So, and I don't, I get that's probably not changing for next year, but I've got to figure out where I can be the most use or spend my time most wisely. And so I was really thinking about how we can engage our community, engage our students in particular. When we get to the elementary schools, most of those kids are coming to the library once a week. We've got Miller that's, just unique, but much, much bigger than the other schools. And they're not able to do that. So I think for elementary, I'm going to spend a lot of time with Miller just to make sure that their kids are getting some of the programming that other schools are also getting, while still also getting to all the elementary schools as well, when, helping those librarians do their work as well. And then the middle school, I think, is probably going to be where I spend a good chunk of time as well, because they're the bridge between all these kids that are coming from elementary school that are having time in the library, and then they get to middle school. And just because of scheduling, but middle school is just a different format, right? They don't always get that weekly time or that regular time in the library. It's more of a choice. And so I'm really starting to talk to Josh about what that could look like, especially since, I have no answers there because he's still trying to figure out middle school for next year, but I feel like that's a place where I could spend a lot of time and do some good, especially feeding into high school and what you've got going on with capstone and media literacy and things like that. I also can spend time there because that would be very helpful for those classes. We really have an amazing person in the library over there in the high school. She's really a crackerjack. I really like her. She's just great. I call her my ninja. She's very modest, she's very sweet and quiet, but she knows her stuff. So what we came out of Reading Roundup with is that we all kind of agreed that the high school library needs to look a little different.
Yes.
And we were coming up with ideas, and then we realized, well, high schoolers don't really want to hear from us. They need to have some say in the matter. And so she has some teaching assistants, some students who already work with her, and we're going to keep working with them to think about what would they want their library to look like, and even how it would be organized and seating area. And Linda's given us some constraints. It has to fit the staff, and we can't move the thing in the middle.
Can't take that out.
It holds up the ceiling. So we think libraries need ceilings,
Yes.
and that's important. So
Yeah.
we're gonna work with that.
Beyond that,
Beyond that, we're just kind of dreaming that up, and then also thinking about whether we could have maybe a spring library course as well. So we're, again,
Yes.
that's just,
for next year,
yeah.
there's always room to pilot something for this spring semester. If they were to go out and get some clients, some kids that wanted to take a library course, to pilot it, to see if it was something we would offer again. We can look at study halls, kids in study halls, and kids who are looking to do something else with their schedule. And so it gives Jamie a little bit more time to put something together that we can pilot second semester next year.
Which we really appreciate we just need a little extra time to think about how it would work, so. Yeah. And then, so any questions about what I'm thinking about for this next year? No, okay. And then I just want to kind of come back to the library standards, because I think they're really robust. And I keep thinking about, I spend a lot of my time thinking about media literacy, information literacy, and the role of libraries in our lives today. I know when I was growing up, we also only had landlines. But when I needed an answer, I went to the library. And now I don't do that. And we don't do that. We go to our phones, right? And the role of libraries have changed. And it's not so much about going to find the answer that you can't find anywhere else. It's about learning how to make meaning of your world and how to think. We don't teach kids what to think. We We teach you how to ask questions and do the research to find the answers that make sense to you. And I think that's a really critical thing for all of us.
And the validity of the source.
And the validity of
So
the
that's something
sources.
that you and I talked about, like,
Yes,
right now, not having a lot of library support in classes. Since people are going out to Google searches.
Yeah.
When there are vetted search engines.
Yeah.
That our kids need to be more aware of. It isn't just a matter of typing it into Google.
Yeah.
Because you can't trust that that's even a vetted resource, and that's in all ages of life right now,
it really,
that people are believing things that
Yeah.
are just completely untrue
and
because it's online.
we have algorithms, like your computer learns what you are clicking on, what you're not clicking on, and now, you know, I was just thinking about this earlier today too, like when I was little, you watched the 6 o'clock local news, and you watched the 6:30 national news, and then you turned it off. And we all kind of heard about the same thing. And now my computer knows what I like and what I don't like, and it just, we're all getting different stuff, right?
And
Like,
Google adjusts your search based on what it knows you like.
exactly,
Your
Absolutely,
results
and
are
it's so
not the
skewed.
same as everybody else's results.
exactly. So now it's not really about going to libraries and about finding information. It's really like sifting through the information, vetting the sources, and doing something with it that's meaningful. So, and then another aspect of the, another aspect of the work that we're doing is thinking about how we can work with the tech department and the health department on information and digital literacy as well. So it's all kind of part and parcel of what libraries can look like. Yeah. And that's pretty much what I've got, but I'm not doing for the past few weeks.
Jamie's been up to a lot.
Yes,
Like
that.
And
Kind of a big change that, what
we've hired the right person.
Yeah.
Absolutely. She's
Yeah.
brought tremendous insight and energy. And I think we're going to get a really robust 3 to 5 year plan for how to keep moving the libraries forward. And they need to be moved forward.
Yes.
You know, it's hard to have a frame of reference for what that looks like unless you've been in other schools and other districts.
We used to have it here.
Yeah, they're
We
just,
used to have librarians.
it
in every school.
isn't just a question of money and financial investment. I mean, that's part of it, but it's really about what the vision is for what the library does, and then how the people who work in the libraries create learning environments, and have them be invitational for kids, scale to their ages, and for teachers. So we've got the right person. And we will, with joy, keep reporting back regularly about where that's going
Yeah.
and seeking input about it.
Yeah, maybe we'll get some of our average copyright dates a little bit more out of the 90s, well, out of the 90s. Thank you.
Thank you. It was lovely to talk to you that day.
I'm sorry.
We had to stop the conversation because
I know.
we just had to say, we need to start talking.
I know.
We could just-
I would really like to see at the lower grades, particularly even in like pre-K kindergarten, I'm, it's probably no secret how I feel about this books and whatnot, but I did bring an example because I knew you were coming. So,
I am going to start with Kenny next week.
so this is what my little kindergartner who, I have no idea if he can actually read because he refuses to read these. To me at home because they're bowling. And, bowling, he's bowling. And I just, this is all that comes home now.
Yeah.
And my daughter would get, you know, a love, like, and they're different, I get it. Yeah. But it's just a very different sort of level of engagement in literacy. And as somebody who grew up, like, I was Miss Rumkus for Halloween in first grade, like, I really love it.
So that is the most precious thing I've ever heard.
I'll dig up a picture, but I just I'm really interested, yeah. So just like, I get it that we have to do this.
Yeah.
But sort of like, these are the skills so that you can read this book.
We are the joy. That's
Yeah.
kind of why I'm going to the SADS training to see like what else, how can we complement what's going on in the classroom. So they're important skills, but also we want them to love reading. And if they're nonfiction folks, great, and if they're fiction folks, great, and we've got something for everybody, but, I think we've got a really great staff that listens to our kids. I mean, so that, okay, this kid's coming in next period and he really likes hunting books, I've got some new ones here, or graphic novels, so I think that's, I'm really starting to think too about how we can complement that, because I think that that is a struggle. Those are still they need to know that they get to come to the library.
Right. Like an actual book.
Like an actual book. Yeah.
It is both. That's so touching. The stories.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I know, I was talking to her. She's not, this is her, I talked about her paperwork. This is 2 weeks.
We don't do that.
Right? Like, okay, that's, I guess my question is like, is this long? Like, is every second grader coming home with my fourth grade coming home?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. So he needs to come on with us.
That's what's crumpled in the bottom of the bag. Right? Yeah, it's just, that felt like a lot.
No wonder we have to have backpacks.
Like,
Oh,
yeah.
word, yes.
Huh?
Yes.
You have them pilots, backpack.
Oh, yeah.
I got a pail, did you have a metal pail lunch pail,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, another one.
Red flag.
And I'm gonna get it in there, stay.
I was just gonna ask, obviously, after only 5 weeks, it doesn't make sense to say, so, what are your long-term plans for personnel of the library division and our support? But since we had another media specialist on the budget and, is currently disfavored by the majority of the committee, I think it makes sense possibly to ask in that 3 to 5 year time horizon, whether you see a role in the district for another media specialist, or whether you feel like you're likely to be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish with yourself and the other personnel you have.
I totally understand not adding it this year. I would love to have another person this year, and I understand. And I just want you to know, I'm coming back with a lot of data, you already know that, to make the case that, we need somebody at the minimum, we need somebody at the elementary level and middle school, high school, our kids. I feel very happy, I grew up in rural Maine. This area is big compared to what I grew up in. Our kids deserve that kind of, they're getting that information anyway, and they deserve that, same level of, education, So I totally get it. I wish it was happening this year, and, I'll just keep the case for it, so. Thanks.
So my story about reading is that when I read Little Women, and there was the one scene where Joe, it talks about how Joe always ate an apple when she was reading, and I went to my mother and I said, I need apples. You need to always have apples. Yes. So that when I read, which I did regularly, daily, I can eat an apple at the same time. I just keep this grumpy. Demanding about having apples, why do you like so much?
Yes.
You had mentioned, I think it was, I don't know, it was some meeting last week, must have been a board meeting, I don't remember when. Anyway,
The policy meeting.
yes. You mentioned that you have a lot of, a significant number of book challenges that have come in.
I have not personally, no, I meant, like, what we're seeing as a national trend. I don't know of any that's happened within the district at all. I just pay attention to those things with this.
I think you were referring to just sort of in general, what's in
Okay.
the news
What's been in the
of
news.
the past 2 years.
Yeah. So it used to be like you get 1 or 2 at a time. Yeah, we're just seeing people coming in with book lists and doing a group or a mass challenge.
Right, and we've had that here in the district
Yeah.
as well.
Okay.
And, I guess I just kind of want to know what your thought is on, the concern about some of the literature, if you can call it that, that's in the high school particularly.
Yeah. I'm a freedom of information person, and we don't force kids to take a book. So feel that we can't, and we have procedures in place, in our system. So if a parent doesn't want their child to have a particular book, we can flag that for sure. I might also have a parent who wants their child to have access to the same book. And so I'm competing with those two kinds of ideas. And I think when I look at the policy and I look at what I'm hearing from, and I'm not a lawyer, so for sure, this is just my research that I've done. Kids have that freedom of information. And we're going to use the IDJ policy to the best of our ability to pick our materials, but I guess that's my answer.
So if these are things that are just like novels not related to curriculum, and the policy talks about how selection should be made based on curriculum, would those books still stay at the library?
I think so, because the policy doesn't just say curriculum, it says diverse opinions, and I'm sorry, I can't remember all of the list of it. So there's a lot of different selection criteria that gets involved in that. And
And
so,
there are broader organizations that,
yes.
it's not as if the library media specialist sits down and personally chooses every.
No.
It's sort of like,
Yeah.
this is vetted by national
Yes.
organizations. Recommendations based on criteria for schools to adopt.
I mean, typically, and I have just been newly part of the purchasing process. Typically, if a title comes up, we're looking at professional reviews of books to see what the, professionals are saying about those books and whether they're appropriate for high school or not. That's what we're basing our decisions off of.
The policy also says that it needs to be personally reviewed, and I guess to me that seems different than just reading reviews. It says personally review and seeking professional. So to me, a personal review would be like literally either going on, I don't know, like the only thing that pops into my mind is Amazon.
Sure.
And like flipping through the sample pages and that kind of thing, or actually having the book and reviewing it, which is quite time consuming.
Yes.
But is that how you view personally reviewing a book, or whatever the term is, reviewing the materials, I think is the word in it.
I mean, I think if there's a book that means that, for sure. I think me personally reviewing every book would be
Impossible.
It would be impossible.
Right.
You can meet your more librarians.
But, but
And I get 7 more libraries.
Yeah.
Not to make light of it.
For purchasing purposes.
I don't think I could review every single book that we purchase. I think if there's certain ones, I could for sure. I feel like looking at professional reviews that's what most librarians use as their criteria for making purchase decisions. I mean, that's what I know.
That is sort of like the industry standard.
That's the industry.
That's-
Sure.
This is again maybe another kind of longer term time horizon question. But it kind of speaks to what Rachel was talking about the struggles that some kids have with the literacy specific curriculum and materials. And it occurs to me that a large part of raising not just people who can read, but people who want to read and people who love to read happens in the home as well as in the school. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts about, I don't know, whether it would take the form of partnering with local libraries or whether it would be, things that you might think our school libraries can do to encourage reading for pleasure outside of the school environment.
I have been thinking about that. And I have some ideas. I'm just not sure how to do it all. Because I think that's part of engagement, and I honestly believe that what we're hearing from kids more and more is that they actually want to read. They actually want to read a physical copy of a book. And I think sometimes it's building that muscle back up again. I know for myself, it's like that too. I go through space where it's times when I just read, I listen to audiobooks, which is reading. But it's a different skill to sit down and read a book one thing at a time. And so I've been looking at how can we do more things to encourage reading, as a community, as a school community, and hopefully that would trickle out into the schools. I know there's something that I am just starting to look at called, and I'm gonna speak on it, hold on. Okay, it was like a place to do book challenges, but it's really for yourself, right? So like maybe you set a goal for yourself to read 2,000 pages in a year, and we can help you track that, and make mini goals along the way. I don't know, that's something I've been thinking about as well, because I think that just promotes that culture of reading. There's an app for that. There is an
Good reading.
there- Okay,
Yeah.
there is, and then there's another one, and I really wish I could remember starts with a B, and that's all I'm coming up with right now, so.
Do they still do the MS Readathon? That'll tell you how old I am. Does anybody else remember that?
I mean, it's kind of like a book
I
that
go
they, but
way
it's
further
much
back.
more sophisticated. Hold on a second, I can give you a second.
Pizza reading.
There you go.
Generation.
I can remember going back to my town library for the summer reading program, and I felt in the middle of this huge table, at least it seemed huge, I was like 6 years old. Huge table in the middle, and it had all these little porcelain statues of different kinds of animals. And if you read a certain number of books, you would get a certain
Yes.
animal, and like, I wanted a horse.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of books.
Yeah.
But I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Okay, so it's called Bean Stack. I'm still
Oh, I've
waiting.
heard of that.
Yeah, and I don't know how I Bean Stack. It is actually an app. There's an app for that. I don't really know how I feel about it because it's a little token economy-ish, which is not really my jam. But I also know that a lot of people are using it. The thing the kids want the most is book.
Hmm.
And so they're really, a lot of the stories I'm hearing is they bypass the trinkets and save up for more books. They just want more books. So I don't know that that's what we want to do. It also has a monetary cost to it, and I also don't know if I want to take that on as well, or if we have the budget for that. But I am thinking about ways that we can encourage without like overdoing. I mean, like our teachers aren't already doing a ton. They've already taken on a ton. They don't need, and the library system would be doing it, but yeah.
It's in the past, they've done the main student book award, well, it's the challenge, and kids can read it and, you know, just document some way that they read it. Then any kid who had done it, who had read so many books, like they would get an ice cream party or something like that. Kids were really into that.
Yeah.
And adults participated, so just things like that, some it's like challenges.
They do, and that's kind of what I was thinking about for that program, was that you can set program challenges with each other, you can have a buddy challenge, you can have a class challenge, you can have a school challenge. There's one district that's, you know, they wanted to read 1 million minutes or something, I'm making that up, but they all got together and they pooled all their minutes and read it together, and, you know, that's, I don't know, that's all kind of whatever it takes to get a kid reading, because sometimes it's just a little bit of push and.
I feel that the common thread that I pick up from the whole conversation, going back to your concern about how are the materials kind of vetted, is at the risk of, again, dating myself. I remember a time when kids formed relationships around reading.
Yeah.
You know, with their parents, with their teacher, with their classmates. So many of these ideas that come up really have to do with how do you motivate kids to read. It's in part it's by the story, but in part it's by how a relationship with another person develops around what you've read. And I think that's a piece just societally that's diminishing. And then that's really hard to combat. And, you know, what it puts schools in to your point is that it's a superhuman task for one person to kind of personally vet everything that comes into the library. And so we have to rely on organizations that are recommending these things to us. And that leaves us in the position that something could slip through the cracks that doesn't match our values, and that could go home to a kid who's harmed or whose parents are offended. And then somehow that's how we have to have the relationship through a fair and transparent process to remediate that. I don't know if I'm making this make sense, but so much of what I am hearing Jamie talk about is building up the library so that at least kids are having a chance to have relationships around books.
I mean, I think that's, libraries are not connectors. They connect kids, they connect communities together. And that's kind of where I see it being of value to our schools. And then actually there's another, as you were talking, the other thing I've been looking into is we have a Sora account, which is ebooks and audiobooks. And I've just been doing deep dives into that. That is a whole world unto itself. But there are ways to do, get books that everybody in the district or everybody at the high school can have access to the same book. You can read that book from them. Or some kids want to come in and do a book study. We can do that. We've had 2 high school students come in the last couple of weeks. One of them wanted this, I couldn't even tell you, it's like a samurai book series, and he couldn't find it anywhere. And it was so exciting to buy those books, and they got delivered right to him. And he came back, and I mean, it took less than a week, the whole series. Another one wanted I can't remember, it was a classic, but she wanted the audio book of it, and it was so nice to be able to just, it was assigned to her by the end of the day. And it was kind of cool to have that. So, I mean, there's also those kinds of things as well, that I'm thinking about. So that's kind of a fun, I know some of our public libraries do that, where there's a book of the month and everybody, whoever wants to read it, they can get as many licenses. There's different kinds of licenses for ebooks and audiobooks. But that may be a fun thing to do too. So, yeah.
Do we still have Epic books too?
I'm not, so Epic Books is, I believe, last time I knew, it doesn't cost the schools anything, and teachers can use that. It's not part of the library.
Okay.
Used to have, some schools used to have Tumble books, but I think that can get pretty pricey. And I think we can do the same thing on Sora. Sora is mostly being used by the middle school, high school right now. That's the ebooks and audiobooks. They do have a lot of early readers where you can read and it shows you the words and it will read along with you. And I think it's just a matter of letting people know what's possible with Sora, and making sure that they have the books. And we do have some money to spend in that. So right now we're working together to come up with a list of books to get for our kiddos, especially the elementary teachers. So, yeah. Well, thank you.
I think that's all we have tonight. I don't see Mr. Dr.
I
Snyder.
saw him on. He's here. He's here.
Oh, is he here?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we're gonna go fetch him. We'll go fetch him and see what he needs and give him to you. Talk amongst yourselves.
Please meet.